Hello, Hoff. Hello, Mike.
Hello, Caio. Hello, Mike.
Hi, Hoff. Hi, Caio.
Thank you for joining us. So, first question, are you an iOS developer?
Yes, I am.
For how long?
I started my career in 2016 after I finished my Udacity iOS Nano degree course.
Nice. How can we help you?
So I'd like to know some insights and some lessons about how to implement and how to write tests for repository pattern.
Okay.
Okay. So first of all, let's discuss a little bit the repository role, right, in an architecture.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd like to draw some diagrams here just to
Yes.
explain the main responsibilities of a repository.
Mm-hmm.
And usually it's like an abstraction between the domain and databases, right?
Infrastructure.
Nice.
Infrastructure.
Okay.
So let's say if we have here a add payment method use case, for example. It needs to run some validations, right? It needs to run some business rules to make sure the payment method is correct, it's valid, and then it needs to store it to a database. So let's say we have a database here. Make it a core data.
Okay.
Let's say repository. Just a core data store.
Yeah, store.
And if we make the use case talk directly to this implementation here, what's going to happen is that now we are coupling the use case with an infrastructure component, a concrete implementation, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Depend on the core data types here. You're probably going to expose some managed objects, the context, threading details as well. And this can complicate the business rule, right? That should be pure, agnostic of frameworks and infrastructure details.
Okay.
The use case directly, right? The domain directly with an implementation, we can have something in between them. We can have an interface. Like usually the repository is an abstraction in between the implementation. Look how here the use case depends on the core data store. But if we add this implementation now, the direction of the dependencies is inverted. Now the core data store points towards the abstraction.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the dependency inversion principle, right? We inverted the dependency. Instead of the use case depending on the core data store or core data details, now the core data store depends on the needs of the use case. So this interface here, the repository, belongs to the use case.
Nice.
In the same module.
Mm-hmm.
Make sense?
Yes, totally.
Thus, they can be deployed independently.
Mm-hmm.
Without
Nice.
a core data store, right? You can put this in a package and deploy it in any platform because it doesn't depend on anything that's specific like core data. For example, core data only works on Apple platforms, but you could potentially deploy this use case here on Windows or Android or, I don't know, Linux,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because then you can create other implementations of the repository, like
Nice.
a SQLite store
Nice.
that implements here the same repository. And you don't need to change this package at all. The use case doesn't know about the concrete implementation, right? The use case just defines an abstraction here with all the methods it needs. So one of the questions you asked us before the session was, which methods should I add to the repository, right? Only the methods the use case needs.
Okay. Yes, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So these orange boxes are just the implementation, how to access and how to persist the data. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And I need to pass a kind of a type of file to the repository, and this file could be a boundary uh, uh, to do the connection between the repository and this real implementation. It's okay. It's correct.
For example, here, this is the boundary, right? The interface here is the boundary that creates the separation, right? The inversion, the dependency inversion. And you inject, for example, here you can inject in the initializer, you pass a repository protocol, right, to the use case class.
Okay, nice.
And then when you're testing, you can pass like a fake store, or you can pass an in-memory store just for the test purposes, you know. So testing-wise, you can have test-specific implementations just to facilitate testing, right? That also implement this repository. This is something else you can do.
Okay, nice. So I got it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And then you just, when you are in production, you inject a core data store or a SQLite store. When you're testing, you inject a fake store or an in-memory store, and so on.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Sorry, Mike. Go on.
I was about to say that this implementation here is pretty generic as well with its repository interface. Like you can of course tailor the repository interface to your needs, to the domain's needs, right? So this can be, for example, the payment method or add payment method repository, right? So it contains exactly the interfaces required by the domain, and this is basically the implementation of the interface segregation principle, the I in solid, right? So components will not depend on any methods they don't need. They only depend on exactly the methods that they need, right?
Okay.
So yeah, maybe you have another one, exactly, like create order, you know, and then you have a new order repository. Yeah.
Nice.
But creating only one interface and sharing across all the modules, right? You can create use case specific repositories as well. So you don't couple this use case with this one, because maybe you have an application that you can deploy this without the add payment method, right? But if you have one interface with everything, when you move one class, you need to move everything along with it, right?
Yes.
Create this strong dependency. But if you need this extra flexibility, you can separate them in different protocols like this. Nice. Mike, what were you going to say after that? Sorry.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Yeah, I was about to say that now the implementation of those repositories can be from the same, component. For example, like the core data store. The core data store or the SQLite store can implement both.
Nice.
So
it can implement both. Yeah, but that's an implementation detail depending on your application. Maybe for performance reasons, it's better to have the same implementation, or not. But that's an implementation detail.
Okay. Nice. Perfect. Yes, now is clear the other moment. Thank you.
Awesome.
And
yeah, you can define here the interface with the methods you need, the use case needs, right? Because the use case owns the interface. They live in the same module.
Yes.
But there's also something called the repository pattern, which is a very specific way of implementing this interface here.
Okay.
With collection based interfaces, like an array. And if you're interested, there's this book called Patterns of Enterprise Application Architecture by Martin Fowler, where he describes the repository pattern.
Nice. I will
Short.
read, certainly.
It mediates between the domain and the data mapping layers using a collection-like interface.
Nice.
So they describe ways of defining this interface in a very, very specific way with collection-like methods. I also recommend, if you want to go deep into this topic, the Domain-Driven Design by Eric Evans.
Oh, nice.
Where they also describe the role of a repository in a domain-driven design, which is pretty much an infrastructure service, just like in the clean architecture as well. The names are usually different, but the roles are
the idea is the same.
Yeah. The idea is the same.
Nice. Good.
Separating the domain from implementation details.
Yeah.
Nice.
And this is also the dependency inversion principle here. Like we started, for example, with the use case depending directly to the infrastructure, the core data store, right? So we have a high level component depending on a lower level component, which of course, as Caio said, this brings a bunch of problems. With the interface in between them, though, the domain depends on the high level abstraction. And now the lower level component, the infrastructure implementation, core data store, etc., depends on the higher level module.
Nice. Good.
Yeah, makes sense.
Again. Yes. And could we have a code demonstration, just a little implementation?
Do you know in the course we have the feed store, for example?
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and there's a challenge about this as well.
Okay.
The second challenge is exactly on this topic.
Oh, nice.
And you have the use case implementation there. For example, the remote loader, right? That talks to the store, and then you have the core data implementation of it. That's exactly the same pattern, just with different names.
Nice. Okay. Good.
They're on GitHub.
I didn't watch this class yet, and
okay,
cool.
But I will do.
Yeah, it's out there, and you can get the code as well. It's on GitHub.
Nice. Good.
Awesome. Does he answer your questions about repositories?
Yes, I'm clear now. I'm very comfortable now with repositories. Thank you.
Fantastic.
That's great.
Yes.
Now time to practice, apply.
Yes. I will implement some tests in this noon, so I will practice it.
Awesome. And if you have any questions, send there in the lectures or on Slack.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Hello, Micah. Hello, Mike.
Hi, Micah.
Hello, Caio.
Thank you for joining us. So, are you an iOS developer?
Yes, I am an iOS developer, and I've actually started my career as an iOS developer, and it's been 2 years now that I do this professionally. Yeah.
Awesome. How can we help you?
So for the first part, so I am a fairly young iOS developer, I would say. So since it's been only 2 years that I do this, right? So I wanted to talk a bit about how to find new job opportunities, given the fact that I am fairly new to this industry, and especially when you want to find good job opportunities to switch from one country to another. So how do you market yourself? Yeah.
Right. So you have 2 years of professional experience, right?
Yes, correct.
And you're looking to move abroad, another country?
I am actually already working abroad now. I am working in Kuala Lumpur right now, but I am looking forward to move to Europe. Yeah, with a job opportunity, hopefully. Yeah.
Do you have a specific country you're looking to?
I'm looking at Germany.
Germany.
Yeah.
Okay, so we moved, to another country, like both Mike and I.
Yeah.
And the way I did it, I first moved to a new country and then I started looking for opportunities. That's what I did. Yeah, but I was a senior already, right? I was a senior developer at the time. But Mike?
It was the opposite for me. It was I was looking for the opportunities from my home country. Sorry. And yeah, I joined as a junior, So you can have, like, there's no rule there. That's what I want to say, that, anything can happen. So the important thing,
you had less than 2 years experience, right, Mike? Professional, I mean.
Yeah, it was around there. It was around there. A couple of years of professional experience. Yeah.
So using the existing experience that you had, right, given the 2 years, so how did you proceed to look for a job given your profile as a young iOS developer, or as a young developer? I don't know.
Yeah. So the strategy was simple: promote myself. Like create a portfolio and create a blog and talk about the challenges I had and how I solved them, and I knew that these challenges were people could relate to them. Like it was not just for me, like other developers had them. So yeah, that was the
so
main.
You would just write about your struggles on your blog?
Yeah, absolutely.
Things like that. Okay.
Yes, exactly.
And not just struggles like career struggles, but actually like, oh, I cannot make a navigation controller work the way I want.
Yeah.
And here's how I solved it.
Exactly. Not just about write them, like demonstrate exactly what the problem was, and then provide the solution as well, And it was, it was the best sort of solution that I could provide at the time. Of course, then I learned, better ways to do it, et cetera. But yeah, that was it.
So would you say that creating a really good portfolio is crucial to find a good job opportunity abroad?
I mean, I would say that, yes. And you have to think about it from the other side, like from the teams that are looking for people, and how are they going to base their decisions? They probably are going to have to be attracted to some sort of value. So you need to provide this value, and a portfolio is a fantastic way of doing so, because you can do so many things with a portfolio. Just you can showcase yourself, you can showcase how much you care about what you're making. It's not just the code, it's like the README file, for example. You can you can anticipate the problems the interviewer or the hiring manager is going to have and solve it beforehand, so you have to think about these things. And
when I moved to the UK, I had like 12 apps that I built professionally that I could show. I also worked for a big company, Walmart, that also added a lot to my CV. What else? I had open source projects on GitHub in Objective-C at the time. There was no Swift. Yeah, so like anything that you can provide to the companies to kind of know a little bit more about yourself, about your personality, about your work, about your skills.
Yeah.
It definitely helps having a blog, a GitHub account with some code there, some apps you can show that you built, portfolio, and especially professional apps you worked,
Yeah, exactly. And
does it matter like?
Please go ahead.
I'm sorry. And does it matter like the amount of apps, or so I know that you guys mentioned once that quality counts more than quantity, right? So is it okay if, let's say, I have only one app in my portfolio and just like like a good one, is that enough to find an opportunity like abroad, or do they need more, would you say?
One good one should be enough.
Yeah, it should be enough. Like some companies or some teams, maybe they require more, but like overall, I think that it should be enough. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the job I got, my first job I got in the UK, they didn't even look my portfolio. I built my portfolio. I had spent a lot of time. They didn't even look at it. It was more about going to the interview, talking to them, and showing, like my personality that matches the team, what the team was looking for in skill wise as well. So you never know. You may not even need a portfolio. Maybe they just want to have a talk with you and see if it's a good match.
Yeah.
So it really depends on what the company is looking for. Have you applied already?
I have applied to a couple of companies, but so far I did not get any interviews yet. Yeah. Because a lot of positions were already filled in because they posted it a while ago, but I guess the job ad was obsolete and they did not remove it from, the job search portal, stuff like that. Or sometimes I would even try to apply for like positions that are a bit out of my reach because I would think that, why not? Just try my luck. But that's like a long shot,
Yeah.
So would you say that it's fine to do that, or just to, really stick to where you're at right now?
That really depends, I like to take challenges that I'm not 100% ready for because it's what's going to push me to go to the next level as well. But also not getting a position where I cannot deliver is also not good because, it leads to a bunch of other issues.
Yeah.
So always try to find something that's going to push you a little bit more than where you are right now. Don't get a position that's going to be super comfortable, Get something that's going to challenge you, but not challenge you too much that you cannot deal with the challenge.
Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
noted. Yeah. And I have another question with respect to
excuse me. Just before we move to the next question, another tip that I would urge you to follow is talk to recruiters, especially people that they specialize in the market that you want to go and work. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So
in that case, talk to recruiters in Europe just to promote myself.
Or in Germany. If you look in Germany, go specifically. And if you're looking in Berlin, you look for recruiters specialized for iOS developers in Berlin. Go very, very precise where you want to live.
Yeah.
It's much easier.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, yes. That's a good tip.
Right. So you do everything together, it's like you don't rely just on the portfolio or just on talking to recruiters, it's a whole process, and you go after it simultaneously. So you increase the probability of, finding what you want.
Yeah, that's a good tip. And also another question that I find that occurs quite frequently when I apply, right? So in the job application, there would be a section where, whether you have any websites that you would like to promote. So I assume that's either like a link to your portfolio or a link to your GitHub. And so my GitHub account is a bit obsolete, particularly because every work that I do related to iOS development is related to the company that I work with right now. And I've used it previously in the past at university, and the programming language that I was using at the time was Java. So there's nothing related to iOS development there. So which one would you say is more crucial to have given my profile, right? So is it like to build my GitHub first, or to have a portfolio ready and to use that to market myself?
Yeah, again, it really depends what the companies are looking for. As I said, some companies not even going to look at your portfolio, right? They're going to prefer to have a chat with you and maybe send you a code test. But whatever is easy for you to start, both helps. A portfolio, a GitHub account, a blog as well. And as much as you can, try to combine those tasks to save time. For example, start a blog, and as you write articles, you can create a GitHub repository where you're going to post the code, for each article, for example. And then at the same time, you build a presence on GitHub, you build a presence on a blog, you build a portfolio maybe of apps that you create to support those articles as well.
Okay, yes.
Yeah.
Maybe a YouTube channel if you prefer to make videos rather than writing, There's no rule, like you need to have a YouTube channel, you need to have a blog, but it's like whatever is going to get you started quicker, you start there and grow with time.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Yeah, exactly. And I like that, like maximizing efficiency as well, like if you can do one thing and use it for two separate goals, like that's good. Definitely.
Yeah.
Do you have any open source projects at your current job, or is everything
No.
private?
Everything is private.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you need to create your own.
Yeah.
And if they ask you like, oh, do you have anything to promote to, for example, a GitHub account? And if your GitHub account like is not being updated for 4 years, don't even send,
Yeah. Yeah.
If there's nothing they're not going to see there. Unless they say, can you send me your GitHub account? And then say, here it is. But I haven't updated it in a long time because I work in private projects.
Okay, yes. And the other thing that I would like to discuss is, so I started my career as an iOS developer, right? So everything that I know is basically on a front-end level. And for you to be able to build the skills to go to the next level, you kind of need to have a broad view of how a system works, right? So you do need, I think, some backend knowledge development. So I started kind of doing that with my position as well. So I would work on iOS tasks for 60% of the time. And for the other 40% of my time, I would dedicate it as much as I can to backend tasks. But like, given that, I just started, so initially the tasks that they give you are just bug fixes or really tiny tickets for you to get started, right? But then again, when your primary job is like an iOS developer, so how do you kind of build on your backend skills, right? So that you can better market yourself as an iOS developer to go to the next level.
My case was the opposite. I was a backend developer and I became an iOS developer, right? And as you said, how you're going to get practice is actually implementing features in the backend. But if they're only giving you bug fixes or tiny things that you're not actually seeing the big picture, that's not going to help you, right? That's not going to help you a lot. So if you want to also learn the backend side, I think it's very interesting that every developer should understand the full stack. Doesn't mean you're going to be a specialist in everything, right? You are still an iOS specialist, but you need to understand the whole stack because it helps you communicate with the backend, helps you understand how the systems talk to each other and how to make things more efficient. It's very important to understand the whole stack, but doesn't mean you need to be a full stack developer, right? I think it's better to be a specialist than a generalist in this case, especially if you're looking for good positions. Specialists, like an iOS specialist, can get, like, on average, much better opportunities than someone that says, oh, I can do any programming, right? When you're a specialist, companies pay a premium. But to learn the backend, I mean, most of the skills you learn in the front end, you can transfer to the back end and vice versa. When I become a front end developer, I bring most of what I learned, like design patterns, testing, architecture, all of this is transferable. But there's some more specific things, right? Specific to the back end. And how do you learn? Practicing, But bug fixing maybe is not the best way to do it. Maybe create your own projects on the side. As you're creating your portfolio, for example, you're going to create an app, and you can write in your blog there about this app. You're going to need a backend. There's a bunch of free tools you can use for the backend side. and you can build the backend for the app as well. Something simple, you know? But you can start there. Okay, because again, trying to maximize your time, you can also write about the backend in your blog and saying, oh, how I'm building a backend for my iOS app. Could be a series, you know? Try to maximize your time, like combining those tasks.
Okay, yes.
Yeah.
Because I realized that, so my seniors, right, in the team that I work with, so my seniors, they have a good knowledge, I would say, about like backend stuff, and that helps them a lot in their tasks, especially the team lead or the senior iOS engineer. Like they know about the structure, like the payload, how it should look like, what do we need, what's like the better practice, how like front end we're just like consuming data from the back end, we're not meant to be manipulating data, that kind of stuff, right? So that's why I figured that it was a good thing to maybe start on backend now. But then again, yeah, I feel like I'm kind of reverse engineering in a way. Maybe I should have started with the backend first and then move to iOS development later.
No, both are fine. Both directions are fine. Learning the front end first and the back end, because most of the skills you can transfer. But what you can do, what would be the best, is to learn from others. So if you have good people in the back end there that is happy to pair with you, if they are happy to pair with you, instead of saying, hey, when I'm working the back end, can you give me some tasks? Like, they're going to give you bugs. But if you say, when I'm working the back end, can I pair with someone so I can learn from you? That's the best, because you see how they, let's say a senior developer is developing things in the back end, like at the highest level, you know, we're going to see the tools they use, the shortcuts they use, how they think, how they write tests, how they make things performant, you know, and pair with them, because yeah, the best, how do you become a black belt in karate, right? You learn from a black belt.
Yeah, exactly.
If you can learn from them, that'll be great. But if you're working alone and you don't feel like you're learning anything because they're giving you like maintenance tasks, maybe that's not the best use of your time. But if you can pair, I think that will be perfect.
Yes, I agree.
Ask them, can we pair in the backend? And not just watch, but also ask them, can I implement this feature and you observe and help me correct my mistakes?
Yeah. That's it. Yeah, I was in a very similar situation. Like before I joined Caio and focused on iOS, I was doing both, like both the backend and the iOS side. And yeah, after I started pairing, you know, like with very high level developers, you know, it was so apparent that this is what I needed in order to become better in both, you know, the front end and the back end. So yeah, focus on one, and like with a proper guidance, and then you can just transfer this knowledge to the other platform, because you're going to realize that it's not that different, you know. It's like software has universal rules. It doesn't matter if it's, you know, a mobile app or a backend.
Okay, that's reassuring to know.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can actually transfer the skills and not start from scratch again.
No, definitely not. It's exactly the opposite, you know.
It depends. If you focus only on frameworks, like I build apps and I get a bunch of frameworks, I use 20 frameworks and the frameworks do everything for me, then you're going to have a hard time going to another platform because you're not going to have those frameworks, right? But if you focus on the foundation, the principles, and designing your application, you know, in a certain way, and writing tests and thinking about the architecture, then you can transfer all those skills to other platforms.
Yes.
But if you depend too much on frameworks and you don't know what's going on behind the scenes, then you're going to have a hard time.
Yes, exactly. That's why also bug fixing is not, like, it's probably not the
best way to approach the backend development thing.
Yeah.
And finally, so to go to upskill yourself as to become a better iOS developer, you need to prioritize your skills, right? So for example, you need to know about TDD in iOS development, which is something that I did not get to do yet because in my current job, we have a team for that. Like they develop the automation tests on Xcode itself. So that's like a separate team. We just do the development and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
So what would you say should be prioritized? Like the test-driven approach, or I should maybe focus more on building my programming skills with the backend first and then maybe focus on TDD?
I would say focus on TDD before backend, because TDD you can transfer to the backend.
It's applicable
right?
everywhere.
It's a practice that is applicable in any language, in any platform. And even if you have testers in your team, you need to know how to test your code as well, because you cannot rely only on other teams validating your implementation, right? You can be much more efficient if this is part of your process. You're still going to have the testers there, like big companies, they do have testers as well, but the developers are also responsible for testing their own code. So when you're going to mid-level to senior position, this is start becoming mandatory. You're going to have a hard time finding a senior position without the testing skills.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think it's time.
Yes. I will start on that as well.
Yeah, I pushed it too long, like in the beginning of my career, I didn't write tests. And then I have to pick up later on. Like I wasted a lot of time. I learned a bunch of bad practices that was hard later to unlearn and learn the right way. If you can avoid this, you're going to save a lot of time.
Yeah, actually, when I do backend, they use like TDD as well. So I get to write tests for the backend when I change the code. So I kind of modify the tests that were already written. But for iOS development, not yet. So it's kind of one-sided, I would say. So yeah.
Yeah, we have hundreds of videos on YouTube now with a bunch of techniques and testing, how to do the whole process. Start practicing there. And try to, when you work in the back end, try to really pay attention to the tests and imagine, like, if this was an iOS application, how would it look like? Try to find some parallels in there, some patterns.
Yeah, that's a good tip. Thank you.
Awesome.
All right. Any other questions?
No, I think you guys have addressed every single question that I had on my list. So thank you so much for taking the time to really guide and advise young people about how to go around the whole process of building your skills, because it can be overwhelming at times because the amount of things that you have to do to get there. Yeah. So thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for joining us and also sharing the community.
Yeah.
It's going to help a lot of people.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Take care.
Bye. Take care. Bye.